gentle, look at me in the eyes. Don't you lie to me, 'cause I'm your lady. I'll be the river running free to all the oceans of your love. If you can handle me, I'll guide you through my fantasy. I'm fragile like a storm, yeah. I'm strong if you keep me warm. That's how I love, that's how I am. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman, I'll make you see. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman, I'll make you see. I've been running into 100 ways. I'm not sure of all the things I say. It's not easy to encircle me. I'll show my passion with no reserve. If you don't play the one who hurts, 'cause I've been hurt before, I'll take no more. I don't even know what's gonna happen next. Your body and your soul may never take a rest. But if you play it real, I will love you still. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman, I'll make you see. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman, I'll make you see. Well, I guess you understand me, baby. I'm a flow of emotions in the river of life. But if you stand by me, you'll see through me. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman, I'll make you see. I'm a real woman, true as one can be. I'm a real woman.
Yeah. Okay, what's going on? Glad to be back with your family. It should be. Oh, look, hold on. Let me find out I'm geeking. All right. So it look like it's just TikTok. Right. Let me check Facebox. Hmm. Sorry about the delay, family. You know, we got to make sure everything is working as it's supposed to. And we know technology, like the technology me sometimes. So, Facebox. Okay. We're gonna get this party started. So I think it might just be, I don't know what that is. So we ain't gonna worry about it right now. So I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday. I hope you enjoyed your time with your family and you got everything you wanted and you feel blessed and full, you ate well, all those good things. You know what I mean? I hope you feel blessed and ready for the new year. 2025 for me is going to be hard work year for me. So I told y'all that we're going to make sure we get these hard elements right so we can have some other things. So we didn't do Tuesday's show. So we back on schedule where we start our new chakra on Thursday. So today we will be on our intuition or third eye, which essentially resides right here in the center of your forehead. The element for your third eye is light. And the color is indigo. Indigo. So indigo is such a hard color to get, but hence that's why we have as close as we can get with the lighting. And, we started making sure that we have the lighting match the chakra point that we on or the energy point that we on. Because for the most part, light has an ability to heal. Light therapy is real. So it's a lot of research on it. If you don't know much about it, look into it. I don't know what breathing we're gonna do today. What y'all feel like? I feel like 369. So we're gonna keep it 369. We're gonna hit the bowl. And we're gonna do our visualization. And then we're gonna get our read on. Oh, I'm excited. I finally invested in some quality headphones for myself. So they'll be here tomorrow. And I actually spent a little bit of money on them, which is new for me. So I can't wait. I spend a lot of time in airports and things like that. So noise cancellation is huge to me. You don't like that, do you? Hey, Liberty, I see you. You on break? Mhm. I must have knocked it over, so I'm gonna leave that on the chair. So for the bowl, it's a little like rubber gasket kind of thing that it goes on to keep it steady and it won't fall over. But I think I knocked it off the table when I moved it. So I changed my mind. We're gonna do sun moon cleansing as I breathe and exercise. I feel like that is a little more fitting for the fact that we are dealing with the word. Good. Um well good. Sun moon cleansing will probably be good for you. And the element is light. So um have you tried the dragon breathing yet? It works a little bit. And you long overdue for sessions, so get your life together. You feel me? You need to, as a matter of fact, I would like to do a session with you and your daughter, one at a time, both of them. Or something. Need to do a family session. No doubt. But if you're in a comfortable position, you can close your eyes or stand up or whatever you need to do. But with the sun, moon, breathing exercise, we visualize a circle light above our head in our crown energy point. You can make it either the sun or the moon. When we breathe in, we bring it down and we let it cleanse the next energy point. And we go all the way down from the top to the bottom and back up to the top. So you don't have to hold your breath for seconds. You just have to visualize. So now picture a circle light above your head. It can be a moon, the color of the moonlight, or color of the sunlight. Whatever speaks a little more to your spirit. And imagine it sitting in your crown area. And it is cleansing your mind of worrying thoughts, negative thoughts, and giving your mind a sense of peace. And when I say 3, I want you to breathe in and bring it down. So 1, 2, 3. Bring in, bring it down to your third eye and release. Imagine it sitting there, cleansing your intuition, allowing you to feel safe enough to trust again. And then breathe in, bring it down to your throat and release. Imagine it sitting in your throat area, giving you the confidence to say the things that you need to say, giving you the language to express your emotions and feelings constructively and healthily. Healthily. We making up words, family. And breathe in, bring it down to your heart. Imagine it allowing you to give love again, feel love again, feel nourished and full, surrounded by love. And breathe in, bring it down to your solar plexus, your stomach, and release. Imagine it making you feel safe, experiencing your emotions. Imagine it making you feel safe and recognize that you have the tools to express, feel, and trust your emotions and the ability to balance them out. And breathe in, bring it down to your sacral. And imagine it giving you confidence. It's making you feel passion again. Passion for your life, passion for your health, passion for your family, passion for your dreams. And breathe in, bring it down to your root. And imagine it and release. Now imagine the light making you feel grounded, in touch with every part of who you are and who you're going to be and who you were. Now we're going to bring it up. So breathe in, bring it up to your sacral and release. Breathe in, bring it up to your solar plexus and release. Breathe in, bring it up to your heart and release. Breathe in, bring it up to your throat and release. Breathe in, bring it up to your third eye and release. Breathe in, bring it up to your crown and release. And while you are in this state, I want you to repeat after me and say, I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. I trust my intuition. My imagination is powerful. I think clearly. My third eye sees all. Girl, you got a lot that you need to release. You need to definitely try to make these moments for yourself a part of your routine. And trust yourself enough to know that you can get out the emotions. And trust yourself enough to know that it is okay to experience these. And it is okay to recognize what you have on your plate. Because once you do that, you can then give yourself grace and give yourself mercy and be gentle to yourself. When you feel those emotions, you can say the things that you always needed to hear. So allow them to go. Grace and mercy. Grace and mercy. All right, girl. The universe keep telling you. You be dragging your feet. Told you need to bring the girls. They know I told you they don't know they know me. But they know me. They don't realize how much they know me. So, I create that safe space. Yeah. Christmas was good though. My mama talked to me, so it wasn't that bad. And where we at? Celestine prophecies. Yeah, it was interesting. Okay, I forgot they stand behind that store right now. They ran into that man Renault, and they trying to oh shoot, I don't know what they trying to do. Hey, what is that? You gave me a gift. Hey, thank you. Now you the number one gifter badge. Congratulations. Welcome to the Soul family. You need to go live so I can gift you back. Let me find out. I appreciate you. So now you get to allow me to read to you. I'm over here sitting cozy in the mofo, so don't judge me. We reading thanks cola. What is cola? Oh, listen, the only thing I know cola is cost of living. That's the only cola I deal with. Okay. I don't know what that is. All right, we're gonna get started. So I think are they on the third insight or the fourth? One of them. We're about to find out soon. So when I awoke, okay, yeah, Will was already out of the tent. I could smell the aroma of hot cereal. I slipped out of my sleeping bag and looked out through the tent flap. Will was holding a pan over fire. Renault was nowhere to be seen, and his tent was gone. Where's Renault? I asked, climbing out and walking over to the fire. He's already packed up, Will said. He's up there working on his truck, getting ready so he can leave as his part comes in. You and Cola. Oh, you know this person? Holy crap. Good. So now I can talk bad. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yo, the world is small. Yo, so good. Now I can talk bad about each one of y'all to each other. Cola, I love that. Oh my God, this is crazy. See now, that's wild. That's small world. Now Liberty, you gotta tell her I'm a good person. So, and then when we off live, I text you bad things about her. No wonder she the one who got my awesome shirt too. That's crazy. I'm sorry, Soul Family. I know y'all might not care about our little side conversation. But you know, sometimes the world is small and you don't realize it. That 6 degrees of separation has to be real. Because I probably met Liberty in I don't even as a matter of fact, I met Liberty when tagged Tagged was cool. So that was a long, long time ago. Her kids is grown. And I say when I meet you, I don't know. It might be a couple of years now. Yeah, so it's small world. Jesus Christ. Now y'all don't get together and talk bad about me. It's me talking bad about y'all. Don't move the goalpost. This is about me. I get to talk trash. All right, I'm sorry, fella. We had our little side conversation. I didn't know they knew each other. Well, thank you. Okay, excuse me. Will handed me a bowl of oatmeal and we sat on one of the logs to eat. Did you two stay up late talking? Will asked. Not really, I said. I told him all I knew. See, you a hater, but you know that. And you ain't even, I'm the part, you a full time hater, so I expect you to try to talk bad. Just then we heard sounds from the path. Renault was hurriedly walking down to us. I'm all prepared, he said. I must say goodbye. After several minutes of conversation, Renault walked back up the steps and left. Will and I took turns bathing and shaving in the station owner's bathroom. Then we packed our gear, filled the vehicle with gas, and departed headed north. How far is Kula? I asked. We should be there before nightfall if we're lucky, he said. Then added, so what did you learn from Renault? I looked at him closely. He seemed to be looking for a specific answer. I don't know, I said. What conception did Renault leave you with? That we humans, although we are unconscious of it, have a tendency to control and dominate others. We want to win the energy that exists between people. It builds us up somehow and makes us better. Will looking straight ahead at the road. He looked as if he's suddenly thinking of something. Why do you ask? I inquired. Is this the fourth insight? He looked at me. Not quite. You have seen the energy flow between people, but I'm not sure you know how it feels when it happens to you. Then tell me how it feels, I said, growing exasperated. You accuse me of not talking. Getting information out of you is like pulling teeth. You've been trying for days to find out more about your past experience with the manuscript, and all you do is put me off. He laughed and shot me a smile. We had a deal, remember? I have a reason for being secretive. One of the insights concern how to interpret the events of one's past life. It is a process of becoming clear about who you are, what you are on this planet to do. I want to wait until we reach the insight before we discuss my background, okay? I smiled at his adventurous tone. Yeah, I guess. For the remainder of the morning, we rode in silence. The day was sunny and the sky was blue. Occasionally, as we proceeded higher into the mountains, thick clouds would float across our path, covering the windshield with moisture. Around noon, we pulled over at an overlook that afforded a spectacular view of the mountains and the valleys to the east. Are you hungry? Will asked. I nodded, and he pulled two carefully wrapped sandwiches from a bag on the back seat. After he handed me one of them, he asked, what do you think about this view? It's beautiful. He smiled slightly and stared at me, giving me the impression that he was observing my energy field. What are you doing? I asked. Just looking, he said. Mountain peaks are special places that can build energy in whomever sits on them. You look as though you have an affinity for mountain overlooks. I told Will of my grandfather's valley and the ridge overlooking the lake and how it made me feel alert and energized the same day. Charlene arrived. Perhaps growing up there, he said, prepare you for something here now. I was about to ask him more about the energy that the mountains provided when he added, when a virgin forest is on a mountain, the energy is amplified even more. Is the virgin forest we're heading for on the mountain? I asked. Look for yourself. You can see it. He pointed to the east. Miles away, I could see two ridges which ran parallel along to each other for what looked for several miles. Then they converged, forming a V. In that space between the two ridges lay what looked like a small town, and at the vortex, the point where the two ridges met, the mountain rose sharply and butted off into a rocky summit. The summit appeared slightly higher than the ridge we were on, and the area around its base seemed much greener, as though covered with lush foliage. That area green, I asked. Yes, Will said. Is it like Vigente, yet more powerful and special? How is it special? It facilitates one of the other insights. How, I asked. He started the Jeep and pulled back onto the road. I'm betting, he said, that you will find out. Neither of us had said much more for an hour or so. Then I drifted off asleep. Sometime later, Will was shaking my arm. Wake up, he said. We're coming in the cooler. I sat up in the seat. Ahead of us in a valley where two roads came together was a small town. On both sides were the two ridges we had seen. The trees on the ridges seemed as large as those in Vicente and spectacularly green. I want to tell you something before we drive in there, he said. In spite of the energy of this forest, this town is a lot less civilized than the areas of Peru. It's known as a place to get information about the manuscript, but the last time I was here, it was full of greedy types who didn't feel the energy and didn't understand the insights. They merely wanted the money or recognition they might get by discovering the knife. I looked at the village. It consisted of 4 or 5 streets and avenues. Large frame buildings lined the 2 main roads that crossed the center of town, but the other streets were a little more than alleyways lined with small dwellings. Parked at the crossroads were perhaps a dozen of off-road vehicles and trucks. Why are all these people here? I asked. He smiled daringly. Because it's one of the last places to get gas and supplies before going deeper into the mountains. He started the Jeep and drove slowly into town, then stopped in front of one of the larger buildings. I couldn't read Spanish signs, but from the products in the windows, I presumed it was a grocery and hardware. Wait here for a minute, he said. I want to go in for a few things. I nodded, and Will disappeared inside. As I looked around, a truck pulled up across the street, and several people got out. One was a dark-haired woman in a fatigue jacket. To my amazement, I realized it was Marjorie. She and a young man in his early 20s crossed the street and walked right in front of me. I opened my door and got out. Marjorie, I yelled. She stopped and looked around, then saw me and smiled. Hello, she said. As she began to walk towards me, the young man grabbed the arm. Robert told us not to talk to anyone. He said very softly, trying not to let me overhear. It's okay, she said. I know this person. Go on in. He looked at me skeptically, then backed away and went into the store. I tried then, in a stuttering way, to explain what had happened between us at the gardens. She laughed and told me Sarah had relayed everything to her. She was about to say something else when Will walked out with a handful of supplies. I introduced them, and we all talked for several minutes as Will placed the supplies in the back of the Jeep. I have an idea, Will said. Let's get something else to eat across the street. I looked over at what appeared to be a small cafe. Sounds good to me, I said. I don't know, Marjorie said. I need to leave soon. My ride? Where are you going? I asked. Back to the west a couple of miles. I've come up to visit a group studying the manuscript. We can take you back later after dinner, Will commented. Well, I guess that'll be okay. Will looked at me. I have one more thing to pick up. You two go ahead and order. I'll order something when I get there. I'll only be a few minutes. We agreed, and Marjorie and I waited as several trucks passed. Will walked down the street to the south. Suddenly, the young man with whom Marjorie had arrived walked out of the store and confronted us again. Where are you going? He said, holding her arm. This is a friend of mine, she replied. We're going to eat, and then he can run me back later. Look, you can't trust anyone up here. You know Robert wouldn't approve. It's okay, she said. I want you to come with me now. I took his arm and pulled it off Marjorie. You heard what she told you, I said. He stepped back and looked at me, suddenly appearing very timid. He turned and walked back into the store. Let's go, I said. He done flexed on Buddy. That's crazy. He was acting a little aggressive, like relax, man. We walked across the street and into a small diner. The eating area consisted of one room and just 8 tables, and it was permeated with the smell of grease and smoke. I spotted an unoccupied table on the left. As we walked over, several people glanced up at us for an instant, then turned away to what they were doing. The waitress spoke only Spanish, but Marjorie knew the language well enough in order for both of us. Afterward, Marjorie looked at me warmly. I grinned at her. "Who's that guy you were with?" "That's Kenny," she said. "I don't know what's wrong with him. Thanks for helping." She looked directly into my eyes, and her comment made me feel wonderful. "How did you get connected with that group?" I asked. "Robert Jensen is an archaeologist. He's formed a group to study the manuscript and search for the ninth insight. He came by Vicente a few weeks ago, then a couple of days ago. What?" I asked. "Well, I was in a relationship at Vicente and wanted to get away. Then I met Robert, and he was so charming. What he was doing seemed so interesting. He convinced me that our research at the gardens would be enhanced by the ninth insight, and that he was going his way to find it. He said searching for the insight would be the most exciting thing he'd ever done, and when he offered me a place on his team for a few months, I decided to accept." She paused again and looked down at the table. She appeared uncomfortable, so I changed the subject. "How many insights have you read?" "Only the one I saw at Vicente. Robert has some other, but he believes people have to rid themselves of their traditional beliefs before they can understand them. He says he would rather they learn the key concepts from him." Oh, he trying to keep it to himself. See, red flag. I must have frowned because she added, "You don't like that much, do you?" "It sounds suspicious, extremely suspicious." She looked at me intensely again. I wondered about that too. "Maybe when you take me back, you can talk to him and tell me what you think." "He already told you what to think." The waitress arrived and brought our food. And as she was walking away, I saw Will come into the door. He walked to our table quickly. "I've got to meet some people about a mile north of here," he said. "I'll be gone about 2 hours. Take the Jeep and take Marjorie back. I'm riding with someone else." He shot me a smile. "We can meet back here." The thought came to me to tell him about Robert Jensen, but I decided against it. "Okay," I said. He looked at Marjorie. "Nice to have met you. Wish I had time to stay and talk." She looked at him with her coy expression. "Maybe some other time." He nodded, handed me the keys, and walked away. Marjorie ate for a few minutes, then said, "He seemed like a man with a purpose. How did you meet him?" I told her in detail of my experiences upon first arriving in Peru. As I talked, she listened intently. So intently, in fact, that I found myself telling the story with great ease and expressing the dramatic turns and episodes with insight and true flair. She seemed spellbound, hanging on every word. "Goodness," she said at one point. "Do you think you're in danger?" "No, I don't think so," I said. "Not this far from Lima." She was still looking at me expectantly. So while we finished eating, I briefly summarized the events at Vicente up to the point where Sarah and I had arrived at the gardens. "That's where I met you," I said, "and you ran off." "Oh, it wasn't like that," she said. "I just didn't know you, and when I saw your feelings, I thought it was best to leave." "Well, I apologize," I said, chuckling, "for letting my energy get out of hand." She looked at her watch. "I guess I should be getting back. They'll be wondering about me." I left enough money for the bill, and we walked outside to Will's Jeep. The night was chilly, and we could see a trace of our breath. As we got in, she said, "Head back north on this road. I'll tell you when to turn." I nodded and made a quick U-turn into the street and headed that way. "Tell me more about this farm we're going to," I said. "I think Robert rents it. Apparently his group has been using it for a long time while he studied the insights. Since I've been here, everyone has been assembling supplies and readying the vehicles, things like that. Some of his men are very rough." "Why did he invite you along?" I asked. "He said he wanted a person who can help interpret the last insight once we found it. At least that's what he said back at Vicente. Here he has only talked about supplies and helping to prepare for the trip. Where's he planning to go? I don't know, she replied. He never answers me when I ask. After about a mile and a half, she pointed out a turn to the left onto a narrow rocky road. It meandered up the ridge and down into a flat valley. Ahead was a farmhouse made of rough planking. Behind it were several dams and outbuildings. 3 llamas peered at us from a fenced pasture. As we slowed to a stop, several people walked around the vehicle and stared without smiling. I noticed a gas-powered electric vehicle humming at the side of the house. The door opened and a tall, dark-haired man with lean features walked towards us. Yo, I don't know who edited this book, but there's a couple of words that's spelled interestingly. Because I think Barnes and not Bams, because it's spelled B-A-M. And then smiling is S-M-F-L-I-N-G. And it has to be smiling. That's Robert, Marjorie said. Good. I said, I still feel strong and confident. We got out as Jensen walked up to us. He looked at Marjorie. I was worried about you, he said. I understand that you ran into a friend. I introduced myself and he shook my hand firmly. I'm Robert Jensen, he said. Glad you two are all right. Come in. Inside, several people busied themselves with the supplies. One carried a tent and camping gear toward the back. Through the dining room, I noticed 2 Peruvian women in the kitchen packing food. Jansen sat in one of the chairs in the living room and directed us to the other 2. Why did you say you were glad we were all right? I asked. He bent towards me and asked in a sincere tone, how long have you been in this area? Only since this afternoon. Then you couldn't know how dangerous it is here. People are disappearing. Have you heard of the manuscript and of the missing 9th insight? Yes, I have. In fact, then you need to know what's going on, he interrupted. The search for the last insight is getting ugly. There are dangerous people involved with this. Who? I asked. People who don't care about archaeological value of this discovery at all. People who just want the insight for their own purposes. A huge man with a beard and a paunch interrupted the conversation and showed Jensen a list. They discussed something briefly in Spanish. Jensen looked at me again. Are you here to find the missing insight too? He asked. Do you have any idea what you're getting into? I felt awkward and had difficulty expressing myself. Well, I'm mainly interested in finding out more about the entire manuscript. I haven't seen much of it yet. He straightened it in his chair and said, do you realize the manuscript is a state artifact and that copies of it have been made illegal except by permit? Yes, but some scientists disagree with that. They feel the government is suppressing new. Don't you think the nation of Peru has the right to control its own archaeological treasures? Does the government know that you're in this country? I don't know what to say. The surge of anxiety in my stomach was back. Look, don't get me wrong, he said, smiling. I'm on your side. If you have some sort of academic support from outside the country, then tell me. But I get the feeling you're just floating around. Something like that, I said. I noticed Marjorie's focus had shifted from me to Jensen. What do you think he should do? She asked. Jensen stood up and smiled. I could perhaps work you into a position here with us. We need more people. Where we are going is relatively safe, I think. And you could find some homes along the way if things don't work out. Man, he told him all that stuff to scare him so he can offer him a job. That's crazy. He looked at me closely. But you'll have to be willing to do exactly as I say every step of the way. I glanced over at Marjorie. She was still looking at Jensen. I felt confused. Perhaps I should consider Jensen's offer, I thought. If he was in good standing with the government, then this might be the only opportunity I had for a legitimate way back to the States. Perhaps I had been fooling myself. Perhaps Jensen was right, and I was in way over my head. I think you should consider what Robert is saying, Marjorie commented. It's too frightening out there alone. Man, don't listen to her. Y'all been doing good. Though I knew she might be correct, I still had faith in Will and what we were doing. I wanted to express this though, but when I tried to speak, I found I couldn't formulate the words. I could no longer think clearly because you're nervous. Suddenly, the large man walked into the room again and looked out the window. Jensen was quickly up and looking. Then he turned to Marjorie and in a casual tone said, "Someone is coming. Go ask Kenny to come up here, please." She nodded and left. Through the window, I could see truck lights approaching. The vehicle parked just outside the fence, 50 feet away. Jensen opened the door, and as he did, I heard my name mentioned outside. "Who is that?" I asked. Jensen looked at me sharply. "Be very quiet," he said. He and the large man walked outside and pulled the door closed. Through the window, I could see a lone figure silhouetted behind the truck's lights. My first impulse was to stay inside. Jensen's assessment of my situation had filled me with foreboding. But something about the person by that truck seemed familiar. I opened the door and walked out. As soon as Jensen saw me, he quickly turned and walked my way. "What are you doing? Go back inside." Above the generator, I thought I heard my name. "Go back inside now," Jensen said. "It could be a trap." He was standing directly in front of me, blocking my view of the vehicle. "Go back inside now." I felt totally confused and panicked, unable to make a decision. Dude is very emotionally controlling. Then the figure behind the lights walked closer, and I could see his form around Jensen's body. Distinctly, I heard, "Come here. I need to talk with you." Then as the figure approached, my head cleared, and I realized that it was Will. I rushed past Jensen. "What's wrong with you?" Will asked quickly. "We need to get out of here." "But what about Marjorie?" I asked. "We can't do anything about her right now," Will said. "We better leave." We started to walk away when Jensen called out, "You better stay here. You won't make it." This dude, he's just preaching fear. I glanced back. Will stopped and looked at me, giving me a choice to stay or go. "Let's go," I said. Will passed the truck in which Will had arrived in, and I noticed two other men had been waiting in the front seat. When we got to Will's Jeep, he asked me for the keys and we drove away. The truck with Will's friends followed. Will turned and looked at me. "Jensen told me you had decided to stay with the group." "What was going on?" "How do you know his name?" I stammered. "I just heard all about this guy," Will replied. "He works for the Peruvian government. He's a real archaeologist, but he's committed to keeping the whole thing secret in return for exclusive rights to study the manuscript. Only he wasn't supposed to go looking for the missing insight. Apparently, he decided to violate the government's agreement. He is rumored to be leaving soon in pursuit of the Nite. When I learned that he was the person Marjorie was with, I thought I'd better get down here." "What did he say to you?" "He told me I was in danger and that I should join him and that he'd help me leave the country if that's what I wanted." Will shook his head. "He really had you hooked." "What do you mean?" "You should have seen your energy field. It was flowing almost totally into his. I don't understand. Think back to Sarah's argument with the scientists at Vicente. You witnessed one of them winning, convincing the other that he was correct. Then you would have seen the loser's energy flowing into the winner's, leaving the loser feeling drained and weak and somewhat confused, the way the girl in the Peruvian family appeared and the way he smiled. That you look now." "You saw that happening to me?" I asked. "Yes," he replied. "And it was it was extremely difficult for you to stop his control of you and to pull yourself away. I thought for a minute you weren't going to do it." "Jesus," I said. "The guy must be really evil." "Not really," he said. "He's probably only half aware of what he's doing. He thinks he's right to control the situation, and no doubt He learned a long time ago that he could control successfully by following a certain strategy, fear mongering. He first pretends to be your friend, then he finds something wrong with what you're doing, and in your case, that you were in danger. In effect, he subtly undermines your confidence in your own path until you identify with him. As soon as it happens, he has you. Will look directly at me. This is only one of the many strategies people use to con others out of their energy. You'll learn about the remaining ways in the sixth insight. That's the one I want to get to because control mechanisms are a fool. And I want to do a show on control mechanisms. I wasn't listening. My thoughts were on Marjorie. I didn't like leaving her there. Do you think we should try to get Marjorie? I asked. Now, he said, I don't think she's in any danger. We can drive out tomorrow as we leave and try to talk to her. We were silent for a few minutes, then Will asked, do you understand what I said about Jensen not realizing what he's doing? He's no different from most people. He just does what makes him feel the strongest. No, I don't think I understand. Will looked thoughtfully. All this is still unconscious to most people. All we know is that we feel weak, and when we control others, we feel better. What we don't realize is that this sense of feeling better costs the other person. It is their energy that we have stolen. Most people go through their lives in a constant hunt for someone else's energy. He looked at me with a twinkle in his eye. Although occasionally it works differently, we meet someone who, at least for a little while, will voluntarily send us their energy. What are you getting back? Think back to when you and Marjorie were eating together at the restaurant in town and I walked in. Okay. I don't know what you two were talking about, but obviously her energy was pouring into you. When I walked in, I could see it clearly. Tell me, how did it feel during that time? I felt good, I said. In fact, the experiences and the concepts I was relating seemed crystal clear to me. I could express myself easily. But what does that mean? He smiled. Occasionally, another person will voluntarily want us to define their situation for them, giving us their energy outright, the way Marjorie did to you, the way Reiki works. You give me permission, and I help you to find it. It makes us feel empowered. But you'll see that this gift doesn't usually last. Most people, Marjorie included, aren't strong enough to keep giving energy. That's why most relationships eventually turn into power struggles. Humans link up energy and then fight over who's going to control it. And the loser always pays the price. He stopped abruptly and looked at me. Do you get the fourth insight? Think about what has happened to you. You observed that energy flow between people and wondered what it means. And then we ran into Renault, who told you that psychologists were already searching for some reason humans sought to control each other. All that was demonstrated with the Peruvian family, you saw clearly that dominating another makes the dominator feel powerful and knowledgeable, but it sucks the vital energy out of those who are being dominated. It makes no difference if we tell ourselves that we are doing it for the person's own good or that they are our children and therefore should be controlled all the time. The damage still occurs. That's facts. That's that the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Next, you ran into Jensen and got a taste of what it actually feels like. You saw that when someone is dominating you physically, they actually take your mind away. It was not as if you lost some intellectual debate with Jensen. You didn't have energy or mental clarity to debate with. All your mental power was going to Jensen. Unfortunately, this type of psychic violence happens all the time through our human culture, often by otherwise well-meaning people. I just nodded. Will had summarized my experiences exactly. Trying to integrate the fourth insight fully will continue. See how it fits together with what you already know. Third insight show you that the physical world is actually a vast system of energy. And now the fourth points out that for a long time, we as humans have been unconsciously competing for the only part of this energy we have been open to, the part that flows between people. This is what human conflict has always been about at every level, from all the petty conflicts in families and employment settings to wars between nations. It's the difficult feeling, it's the result of feeling insecure and weak and having to steal someone else's energy to feel okay. Wait a minute, I protested. Some wars had to be fought. They were right. Of course, Will replied. But the only reason that any conflict can't be immediately settled is that one side is holding on to an irrational position for energy purposes. Will appeared to remember something. Reaching into the satchel, he pulled out a bundle of papers clipped together. I almost forgot, he said. I found a copy of the Fourth Insight. He handed me the copy and said nothing else, looking straight ahead as he drove. I picked up the small flashlight Will kept on the floorboard and for the next 20 minutes read the short document. Understanding the fourth insight, it said, is a matter of seeing the human world as a vast competition for energy and thus for power. Yet, once humans understand their struggle, the insight continued, we would immediately begin to transcend this conflict. We will begin to break free from the competition over mere human energy because we would finally be able to receive our energy from another source. I looked at Will. What's the other source? I asked. He smiled but said nothing. I don't know. Um, my homeboy read the 10th Insight and he ain't tell me much about it. So I took that as a red flag. And as much as I like this book, I don't like it enough to read like part two. You hear me? Because I guess the really only insight, I mean, all the insights make sense because you feel them and deal with them, but I just kind of get stuck on the control mechanism, the sixth one. Yeah, I've been thinking about what we're gonna read next. I actually been thinking about makes me want to holler, or I don't think the Soul Family ready for the Aquarian Gospels of Jesus the Christ. But the message of the mystics. The next morning I awoke as soon as I heard Will stirring. We had spent the night at the house belonging to one of his friends, and Will was sitting up in a cot across the room, dressing quickly. It was still dark outside. Let's get packed, he whispered. We gathered our clothes and made several trips out to the Jeep with some extra supplies Will had bought. The center of the town was only a few hundred yards away, with few lights penetrating the darkness. Dawn was but a streak of light toward the east. Other than a few birds signaling the impending morning, there were no sounds. When we finished, I stayed with the Jeep while Will spoke briefly with his friends who stood sleepily on the porch while we completed our packing. Suddenly, we heard a noise at the crossroads. We could see the lights of three trucks as they drove into the center of town and stopped. That could be Jensen, Will said. Let's walk over there and see what they're doing, but carefully. We made our way across several streets and into an alley that entered the main road about 100 feet from the trucks. Two of the vehicles were being filled with fuel, and the other was parked in front of the store. 4 or 5 people stood by. Yeah, I love that book. And I think Makes Me Wanna Holler does give a good male perspective. Doo-doo-doo. 4 or 5 people stood by. I saw Margie walk out of the store and place something in the truck there. Then we walked casually walked casually towards us, gazing into the adjacent shops. Walk over there and see if you can get her to come with us, Will whispered. I'll wait for you here. I slipped around the corner, and as I walked towards her, I was horrified. Behind her, in front of the store, I noticed for the first time that several of Jensen's men carried automatic weapons. A few moments later, my fright intensified. In the street across from me, armed soldiers crouched low and slowly approached Jensen's group. At the exact time Marjorie saw me, Jensen's men saw the others and scattered. A burst of machine gun fire filled the air. Marjorie looked at me with terror in her eyes. I rushed forward and grabbed her. We ducked into the next alley. More shots were being fired amid angry shouting in Spanish. We tripped over a pile of empty cartons and fell. Our faces almost touched. Let's go, I said, jumped to my feet. She struggled and then pulled me down again, nodding her head to the end of the valley. To the end of the alley, 2 men with weapons were hiding with their backs to us, looking down the street. We froze. Finally, the men raced across the street to the wooded area beyond. I knew we had to get back to the house of Wilson's friend, to the Jeep. I was sure Will would go there. We crept carefully to the next street. Angry shouting and gunfire could be heard toward the right, but we could see no one. I looked left. Nothing there, either no sign of Will. I figured he had run ahead of us. Let's run across the woods, I said, Marjorie, who was now alert and looking determined. Then, I continued, we'll stay along the edge of the woods and bear left. The Jeep is parked in that direction. Okay, she said. We crossed the street quickly and made our way within 100 feet or so of the house. The Jeep was still there, but we could see no movement anywhere. We were prepared to dash across the last street to the house. A military vehicle turned the corner to our left and proceeded slowly toward the dwelling. Simultaneously, Will ran across the yard, started the Jeep, and sped away in the opposite direction. The vehicle pursued. Damn, I said. What will we do now? Marjorie asked, panic returned to her face. More shots were being fired in the streets behind us, closer this time. Ahead, the forest thickened and inclined up the ridge towered over the town and ran north and south. It was the same ridge that I had seen from the overlook earlier. Let's get to the top, I said. Hurry. We climbed several hundred yards up to the ridge. At an overlook, we stopped and looked back towards the town. Military vehicles seemed to be pouring into the crossroads, and numerous soldiers were conducting what seemed to be a house-to-house search. Below us at the base of the ridge, I could hear muffled voices. We rushed further up the mountain. All we could do now was run. I'll read a little bit more. We followed the ridge north all morning, stopping only to crouch down, and when a vehicle had traveled along the ridge parallel to us on our left, most of the traffic was the same steel gray military Jeep we had seen before, but occasionally a civilian vehicle would pass. Ironically, the road provided a lone landmark, a point of security against the wilderness of all around us. That looked like Will, I said, straining to see. Let's get down there, Marjorie said. Wait a minute. What if it's a trap? What if they captured him? They're using the Jeep to lure us out. Her face fell. You stay here, I said. I'll go down there and you watch me. If everything's okay, then I'll motion for you to follow. Reluctantly, she agreed, and I started down the steep mountain toward the spot where the Jeep had been parked. Through the foliage, I could vaguely see someone get out of the vehicle, but I couldn't see who it was. Holding on to small bushes and trees, I worked my way between the outcroppings, occasionally sliding down in the thick humus. Finally, the vehicle was directly across from me on the opposite side of the slope, perhaps 100 yards away. The driver leaned against the rear fender, was still obscured. I moved to my right to get a better look. It was Will. I rushed further to my right and felt myself slide. At the last minute, I reached for a tree trunk and pulled myself back up. My stomach twisted in flight. Below me was a sheer drop off 30 feet or more. I had barely avoided killing myself. Still holding the tree, I stood up and tried to gain Will's attention. He was surveying the ridge above my head, and then his eyes dropped and he looked right at me. He jerked up, walked towards me in the bushes. I pointed down to the steep gorge. He surveyed the valley floor, then called. I don't see a way across, he said. You have to move down the valley across there. I nodded and was about to signal to Marjorie when I heard a vehicle approaching in the distance. Will jumped into his Jeep and sped towards the main road. I hurried up the hill. I could see Marjorie through the foliage walking towards me. Suddenly, from the area behind her came loud shouts in Spanish and the sounds of people running. Marjorie hid below a rock overhang. I changed directions, running as quietly as I could to the left. As I ran, I searched for a view of Marjorie through the trees. Just as I caught sight of her, she screamed loudly as two soldiers grabbed her arm and forced her to stand. I continued to run up the slope, keeping low. Her look of panic froze in my mind. Once at the top of the ridge, I headed north again, my heart pounding with terror and panic. After running more than a mile, I stopped and listened. I could hear no movement or talking behind me. Lying flat on my back, I tried to relax and think clearly, but the awful specter of Marjorie's capture was overwhelming. Why did I ask her to remain on the ridge alone? What should I do now? I sat up and took a deep breath and gazed over at the road on the other ridge. I had seen no traffic while I was running. Again, I listened intently. Nothing except usual forest sound. Slowly, I began to calm down. After all, Marjorie had only been captured. She was guilty of nothing except running from gunfire. Probably she would be detained only until her identity as a legitimate scientist could be established. Once more, I headed north, my back aching slightly. I felt dirty and tired, and pangs of hunger erupted in my stomach. For 2 hours as I walked without thinking and without seeing anyone. Then, from the slope to my right, I heard sounds of running. I froze and listened again, but the sounds had stopped. Here the trees are larger, shielding the ground below from the sun, thinning the underbrush. I could see 50 or 60 yards, nothing moved. I walked past a large boulder on my right and several trees, stepping as softly as possible. 3 other massive outcroppings lay along my path, and as I moved past 2 of them, still no movement. I walked around the third boulder. Twigs cracked behind me. I turned around slowly. There, next to the rock, was the bearded man I had seen at Jensen's farm. His eyes wild, panicked, his arms shaking as he pointed an automatic weapon at my stomach. He seemed to be struggling to remember me. Wait a minute, I stammered. I know Jensen. He looked at me more closely and lowered his weapon. Then from the woods behind us, we heard the sounds of someone moving. The bearded man ran past me towards the north, holding the rifle in one hand. Instinctively, I followed. Both of us were running as fast as we could, dodging limbs and rocks, occasionally glancing back. For an instant, he stood motionless as his eyes glazed. Then his body arched forward and fell. I reacted blindly, running north again, away from the soldier, keeping the trees between me and the area from which the bullets had come. The ridge grew constantly more rugged and rocky and began to incline dramatically upwards. My entire body shook with exhaustion and terror as I struggled up the spaces between the outcroppings. At one point, I slipped and dared to glance backward. The soldier was approaching the body. I slithered around the rock just as the soldier looked up, seemingly right at me. I stayed low to the ground and crawled past several other boulders. Then the slope of the ridge leveled off, blocking the soldier's view, so I jumped to my feet again, running as fast as I could between the rocks and trees. My mind was numb. Escape was all I could think of. Though I didn't dare look back, I was sure I heard the soldier running behind me. The ridge inclined ahead, and I fought my way up. My strength was beginning to wane. At the top of the rise, the ground leveled out and was thick with tall trees and lush undergrowth. Rising behind them was a sheer rock face that I had scaled delicately, searching for a hand and footholds as I proceeded. I struggled to the top, and my heart fell at the sight above me. A drop off of 100 feet or more blocked my way. I could go no further. I was doomed, finished. Rocks slid along the outcroppings behind me, indicating the soldier was closing fast. I sank to my knees. I was exhausted, spent, and with a final sigh, I released the last of my fight, accepting my fate. Soon I knew the bullets would come, and interestingly, as the end to terror, death seemed almost a welcome relief. As I waited, my mind flashed to childhood Sundays and to the innocent contemplation of God. What would it be like, death? I tried to open myself to the experience. After a long period of waiting, during which I had no concept of time, I suddenly became aware that nothing happened. I looked around and noticed for the first time that I was positioned on the highest peak of the mountain. Other ridges and cliffs fell away from this point, leaving me with a panoramic view in all directions. A movement caught my eye. There, far down the slope to the south, walking casually away from me was the soldier, the gun belonging to Jensen's men slung across one arm. The sight warmed my body and filled me with ripples of silent laughter. I had somehow survived. I turned and sat cross-legged and savored the euphoria. I wanted to stay here forever. The day was brilliant with sunshine and blue skies. As I sat there, I was struck by the closeness of the purple hills in the distance, or rather the feeling that they were close. The same perception applied to a few puffs of white cloud drifting overhead. I felt as if I could reach out and touch them with my hand. As I reached up towards the sky, I noticed something different about the way my body felt. My arm had glided upward with incredible ease, and I was holding my back, neck, and head perfectly straight with absolutely no effort. From my position, sitting cross-legged, I stood up without using my arms and stretched. The feeling was one of total lightness. Looking at the distant mountains, I noticed that the daytime moon had been out and was about to set. It took, it looked to be about a quarter full and hung over the horizons like an inverted bowl. Instantly, I understood why it had that shape. The sun, millions of miles directly above me, was shining only on the top of the sinking moon. I could perceive the exact line between the sun and the lunar surface, and this recognition somehow extended my consciousness outward even further. I could imagine the moon was having already dipped below the horizon, and the exact reflected shape it would present to those who lived further west and could still see it. Then I imagined how it would look when it moved directly under me on the other side of the planet. To the people there, it would appear to be full because the sun over my head would shine past the earth and strike the moon squarely. I feel like that's good. It's 8:14. I went over a little bit since we started a little bit late. We will pick up there next week. I appreciate you, family. I appreciate the two friends joining. I feel like we're a gang that we need to have a get together. But if you got time, hope to see you Tuesday for our shows. I do definitely want to talk about a space that I forgot. But we're gonna talk about another space that we need for healing. And we probably go into the little spaces. I feel like that's a space we need to discuss a little bit more. Oh no, scratch. We might not do a show Tuesday. Because Tuesday I am planning to go out. I hadn't gone out for New Year's Eve in a long time. But my spirit has been wanting to hear some house music. And they got a reasonably priced house party going on Tuesday. So I might do that. But we'll decide. I might get on for a little bit and still, I don't know, parking gives me anxiety. And since it's from 7 to something, I don't know. I might get on message y'all for a little bit and then go out. So we'll figure it out. But I'll make a post to let you know. If we don't see you Tuesday, I hope I see you Thursday. Again, I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. I hope yeah, that's all I want to do. I'm gonna get on some plant meds, and I want to dance till I sweat. I don't care what they doing in there, so that's their business. They get on it. But see you next week. Have a great weekend. Now I'll tell you all about my headphones when they come tomorrow. Whoop, 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 whoop. But have a great weekend. I'll see y'all family next week for sure, for sure. Let's see if this will work. So I got this remote. Oh, it is. It's gonna work. Here we go.